Hi everyone, we are back with another edition of our Facebook Live series, and we are so happy to have Alicia Cop with us. She is I'm sorry, Melody.
I cannot hear you at all, so thank you.
Right, we will adjust the microphone and start again.
Thank you.
You set the microphone, Melody. No, I'm just joking. Melody's our behind-the-scenes producer. She's also my co-host on the podcast. So this is actually a combination taping between our Facebook Live, which we're doing live. That's why they call it live. And also taping a segment for our podcast. So we'll be kind of doing double duties. And as we told our guest over a couple of days ago, you will get paid twice because you're doing double duty for us. So Alicia, it is so nice to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and your work in the real estate world here in the St. Louis area.
So I've been a real estate agent for 18 years. I focus on the West County corridor, and I've been fortunate enough to really have a top producing career. It's an honor, and I love what I do.
Can I just tell you, I'm gonna brag about you a little bit to those of us who are watching and those of us who are listening. I've never seen a real estate agent do so much really good marketing, and the reason I say it's really good is because it's helpful for the consumer. You really are focused and trying to be helpful. It's not all about you and I'm the greatest, and no, you're trying to provide them with some really helpful information. So if people are listening to this or watching this, where can they go look at some of your videos and see a little bit more about what you've done?
Yes, so we have a YouTube channel, AliciaCopTV.com, and then also the Alicia Cop team on Facebook and Instagram.
Well,
so,
you do exceptional work, and again, what I like about it is you're helping educate everybody.
Yeah. And I think we're in a time when people want that.
Right.
You know, we're getting so bombarded with sales that to bring value and to bring content, it really builds trust and relationships. So thank you for that introduction.
And trust is really important in this industry because you'll be working with your agent for a very long time.
Yes.
You're working with the builder for a very long time. So trust is a key component. So I've trusted our relationship. You're really good with the clients, which we work with together. We're going to talk about a lot of different things today, everything from the home builder client relationship to the realtor home builder relationship. But I want to start off kind of talking about the current market, because right now we're kind of in unprecedented times. The last time we ran into a little bit of I guess an issue, if you will, in the industry was all the way back in 2007, 8, 9, 10. Where are we today in your mind, especially with quickly rising interest rates?
Yeah, so of course, being an agent during that time, I've got a unique perspective of comparison. So I think we can validate that it's a time of uncertainty. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world with the stock market, the bond market, the crypto market collapsing. We need to take a step back from the drama and really look at the data from the numbers. And quite honestly, there was such an overproduction of homes leading up to 2008 that had a big determining factor of foreclosures, which then impacted, that's what caused the recession, was the housing market. So those key factors, we have an extreme supply and demand issue. Everything is going to be supply and demand. Remember the toilet paper?
Yes, I do. How could you forget that?
I mean, remember when we could not find toilet paper? How much was toilet paper? So those prices kept going up because the demand went up. That's what we're seeing in the real estate market. We had this big uptick after COVID. We're simply stabilizing the market.
Right.
That's what we want to happen.
Yeah, and I've said before, whether it's just with my team or whether it's during some of our various podcasts and all, we needed to cool this market because this market was too red hot, and that led to many issues that were hard to overcome, pricing being one of them. But I kind of welcome this. What I'm a little bit, I don't know that I use the word concern, because to your point, we're still need to build. The inventory is far too low. If you go back to 2007, 8, 9, not only did we have more homes than we needed, but there was another component that really led to that recession, and that was the lending practices were far too lenient. Anybody could get a loan, and that also drove part of the problem, right?
You're absolutely right, and that's why it's important to look at the market conditions today and examine. It is not that. It's not that. You know, people get loans who can afford homes. The other thing to think about why this is positive is because housing affordability is through the roof. You know, your housing percentage should be about 24% of your income. Currently, the average is 30 to 32%. On the East and West Coast, Kim, it's 50 to 52%.
Oh man, I
We
did
don't,
not know that.
that's not good for anybody.
No,
You
no.
know, people have half their paychecks going to their houses. That's not how it's intended to be. So that's a positive angle that we need to examine.
What are you telling your clients as far as those who are maybe thinking,
Yeah.
is this a good time to buy or is this
Yeah.
a good time to sell? What are you telling them?
So what I am recommending to people is examine what's going to work for you. The truth of the matter is, with the interest rates, some people are going to get priced out of the market. That's a fact. People that had a 2.9% interest rate now at a 6, some people, this will not be a good time for them. But for the rest of the people, prices are not going back. They're not here, and now in 4 years they're going to be here. It's just going to slow down the speed increasing and getting higher. So if you wait for a year and say, you know what, Alicia, I'm going to hit the pause button, we'll circle back, it's not going to be more affordable. It's just not.
And we tell everybody that who is thinking about building a new
Yep.
custom home as well. They think that
Yes.
they can wait out some of this, but you really can't.
That's exactly right.
And to your point, I'm not worried either about losing value. Real estate's still a great investment. It always has been, even though you have, trends here or there where,
Yeah.
where it may, the value may back off a little bit.
Yeah.
It's still a great investment.
So let's look at the numbers. You know, if you look starting back in 1970, the average appreciation has been 3 to 5%
Yep.
per year.
Absolutely.
In the last 2 years, we've been seeing 20 to 28%.
That's not sustainable.
Again, that's not sustainable. We don't want that to be sustainable. So we're not going to have those rocket high numbers. But again, that's okay because it's that 3 to 5% average that we're going to expect to start being implemented. Now, my prediction based on the economists is we're going to see like an 8% uptick over the next year.
Okay.
And then after that, we're going to start falling in a step of history.
3 to
which is
5.
3 to 5.
Yeah, perfect. Very knowledgeable, right? Alicia, we're so happy to have you here. So thank you very much for that. And by the way, anybody who is tuned in on Facebook Live, feel free to ask some questions, and we will get to those in a little bit. But this is a word that I've never heard described in real estate, but I understand you'll know what it means.
Yeah.
Holistic.
Holistic. Yes.
Does that make sense to you?
It actually does not really
Oh.
make sense, Kim. So I guess you're going to have to fill me in on holistic.
All right. So
Yes.
I'm gonna go back to Melody.
Teach me while you teach
So
them.
I'm going to ask Melody again,
Yes.
behind the scenes producer, who wanted me to get into this a little bit. So Melody, why don't you share with us kind of the direction you want us to go in?
So there was a really funny story in the New Yorker. I call it funny because it's people who are basically taking a holistic, almost a yogic approach to real estate sales and transactions. And so, talking about the energy and the vibes and things like that. And so I was wondering what your thoughts were on that, because it seems like that's a growing trend for people to, they'll do anything for a house at this point in time, right?
Yeah. So I think I could go 2 different directions with that. I think that in the upheaval we've seen for the last 2 years, people want a sense of peace and they want a natural serenity. And so in my mind, there's that holistic, if I'm understanding the term correctly, that wherever they can go to get that today and whatever it takes to get that, I'm seeing a huge uptick on bringing the outdoors in. We want that natural peace and calm in our life. And guess what? We don't want to go on vacation anymore.
That's true.
We want to find it in our house. So you're probably seeing this, the outdoor sun porches with the fireplaces, the TV, and the expandable doors where you can open and close. Like, everybody wants peace now in their home, a vacation, if you will, in their home.
And that is, you're 100% spot on. I think that since the pandemic, people do realize that home truly is where they want to spend their time. They want to feel comfortable. They want to feel safe. They want a home that's designed for their lifestyle. And so that kind of transitions us into, the next section where we do want to talk a little bit about the connection for custom home building. So in your opinion, and I know you represent a lot of folks who have built custom, is it for everybody, or is there really, some things that you need to think about before jumping in and saying, we're going to build a custom home.
So I have to say, I've had 6 people in the last 2 years that have chosen to build custom, more than I've had in my entire career. It's because all of a sudden, money is less important, and getting exactly what you want is trumping that. So people are willing to pay a bit more of a premium. And do I think it's for everybody? Absolutely. Do you know why? People are wondering, we may not turn this house over in 5 or 6 years. We're thinking we want to stay here and have just what we want. The experience of custom building is so different and so refreshing. If you don't need this standard pantry, you can blow that out and build it 2 or 3 times. Like, I feel like we're going to continue to see these numbers increase. Have you seen a big uptick as well?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, it's
Yes.
been a very busy stretch for us, and
Yeah.
you hit many of the reasons as people realize the importance of it and designing the home that truly fits their lifestyle and
Yeah.
what they dream about as far as their residence. I know that we talk a lot about custom builders. We're a custom builder, so we're going to build we've never built the same home twice.
Yeah.
We always work with the clients to design their dream home. And then they own the rights to the plans, and so it's never built twice. But there are differences. There's a production builder. Production builders are building in neighborhoods. They're building virtually the same floor plans, maybe some different elevations. What's the difference from your perspective or the customer's perspective in dealing with custom versus production?
So here's something that you excel at, and I work with a lot of custom builders. You ask a lot of questions of the intention of what these spaces are going to mean. That's something you will never get with a production builder. So for you to take the time to find out where people spend most of their time, what's the intention of this space? Are the kids out of the house? Is there a chance they may come home? Do we want to have a multi-purpose space? That's something, Kim, that you bring a humanity to the process that not all custom builders, by far, clearly production builders don't have that option, right?
Right.
The model is you build the same thing over and over, no matter what, because it's a time sensitive, it's get as many houses done as we can. And that's something that I think a lot of people need to stop and consider. This is your biggest financial investment. And having a relationship with you, this isn't a 2 or 3 month process.
It's a 2 or 3 year process.
That's exactly right. So if you can't sit across from somebody and feel like you'd love to go meet them for coffee, it's not going to be the experience that you hope it to be. And it needs to be a personable, where you feel comfortable talking about issues as they happen. So to brag on you for a minute, part of what I've seen in you that I don't see in other people is not when everything is sunshine and rainbows. It's how you handle things when they go wrong. And that speaks a lot to you, because if we're really honest, isn't there always a hiccup?
There is. I'm so glad you brought that up,
Yes.
because I think it's important for those watching and those listening to understand that you're working with plans that have never been built before. You're working with man-made materials, and you're working with individuals who have 2 or 3 or 4 projects going on at the same time. So there's always, and we tell all of our clients up front, expect there to be some, I call them hiccups along the way. But what we talk to the team about is, number one of our core values is communication. You have to be on top of communicating with your clients. And the second thing I always tell them is, if there is a hiccup in the field, go to them with a solution to the problem, and don't just go say, here's what we're working on, here's what the problem is. Say, okay, here's what the issue is, but here are the options, here are your solutions. So that's something that we work on pretty hard. Melody, you're raising your hand.
I am, because we have a viewer, Barb, on, who has asked how you'd explain the value of a realtor and what they bring to the home building process.
That's a good question.
Tag team?
Well, yeah, we can absolutely tag team, because the question is describe the value that a realtor brings to the process of custom home building. And we've certainly worked with realtors in both of the markets in which we build. My personal opinion is it makes it so much easier. The knowledge, the understanding that the realtor has, the trust that realtor has with the client. So when I can go to you and say, hey, this is something that we're dealing with, Would you help us with the explanation to the client and all? I think that's critical. I think your understanding of the process helps the client feel much more comfortable when they come to us the first time, because you've already set them up as far as what the process looks like.
Yep.
And you're, quite frankly, you're there to help and support the client. You're there to help and support the builder. And you're sort of, I guess, in many ways, you're kind of like a marriage counselor.
And that you hit on every single point, Kim. I think there's this tug of war where the buyer builder is thinking they're going to save money if a real estate agent isn't involved. That's the biggest thing that I hear. A lot of people don't realize that when you have trust in a relationship with the client, I get to be a liaison, and it's not you against me. We all have the same goal, to get to the end of the finish line with a house that everybody's happy with.
Mm-hmm.
So you said that perfectly.
Yeah, it's true, and not all. I mean, as a custom builder, a lot of times we have people come directly to us, but we welcome the relationship. Now, full transparency, you know this probably better than I do. Not all builders do, because there is the commission structure, which I firmly believe you all absolutely, positively are due.
Right.
But there's some builders who almost look at it as well, I'll deal directly with the client myself because I don't want to have to worry about the commission portion.
Yeah.
I think that's very short-sighted, and it leads to a project that quite frankly you could do better, you could do differently.
Yes.
And so that's why, I don't even consider that when we're talking about whether there should be a realtor involved.
It's a great collaboration. One more element of the team to make it a good process.
Talk a little bit about the workload. What do you go through if someone's building a custom home? How do you help them?
So in my opinion, I think there's so many things that we get to learn through each home that I've built that I wish I would have known. Those tips and tricks about the importance of the lot, things to think about when the market could shift years from now that we're not thinking about when we're in the current moment. Places with the electrical, things that I know are going to be, the end result is going to be much better. And quite honestly, having an outside perspective who's not knee deep in emotion, that's someone that they trust, brings so much value. And I think everyone ends up being happier at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're spot on. And so let's bring this full circle and talk about bringing everybody together, because it is, you're almost like the quarterback. You have the ear and the, of the client. You want the best for them. You also know the builder. You understand what they're going through. So talk about that relationship that you have with both sides.
Yeah, and I think that's where it comes down to trusting the builder. And for me, being able to share, here's what the strength is of this builder, here's what the strength is of that builder. People end up appreciating full transparency, whether it's good or it's bad. Everyone's going to end up being happier in the end.
So let me ask, this might be a little bit of a difficult question. So if you're a client, or if you're someone out watching us or listening, and you're thinking to ourselves, I'd really love to build a custom home after hearing this, do you recommend they go out and find a realtor? And if so, I would have to believe you want them to find a realtor who has experience in new construction.
It's so important. I mean, I think it's like anything in life, you get what you pay for. So you're not going to end up spending more with a reputable builder, but we have knowledge that you don't. So let me step into it and add one more layer to the process. And absolutely, are you going to end up being happier that you have one more person on your team?
Speaking of team, Melody from the Hibbs team, I think, has another question for us.
Well, and I have another question. I do have a question.
Yes. Is everybody able to hear you, or do I need to repeat your question, by the way?
I think everyone can hear me because I'm close to both microphones.
Okay, good.
Yes. So my question is, I hear a lot and see a lot about how it's much easier to just kind of turn those either, pre-built homes or, and do you really think that that's true? And what is your experience with that?
Well, I never ever share anything negative, and I try to protect everybody's reputation, but I feel so strongly that the time you spend building a custom home is worth every single added month. The end result and what you wind up with at the end of the day is it's just completely different. And so for every mass-produced home that I build and I hear the This just happened to me last year. 2 months after the house was built, the roof was leaking. I mean, there's just numerous. Now a new trend that I'm seeing is we cannot have any kind of an inspector look at a produced home like by a larger builder before the closing date. They will not allow an inspector on the property, which right away,
that's a red flag to me.
That puts me in a position where I don't want to make this a negative experience. I'm not running this process. I have to respect their opinion, but that puts my clients in a really difficult position. So if you're going to stand behind your work, why would you not feel comfortable having another set of eyes on it? So it's things like that. Now, for some people, let's be honest, they don't have the financial capability of building custom. I believe that most people think it's so complicated to custom build. There's so many layers and so many people. Your process is so seamless, having every step planned out. I think we need to kind of unveil the simplicity of it, because I hear that over and over. Oh, we would never ever be able to make a million decisions building. That's what people
think. But if you have the right support, and we recognize that, our team really recognizes the importance of having a dedicated estimator who takes care of the numbers, a dedicated design coordinator who helps with all the selections. So we understand that it is a hard process, it is a long process, but if you have the right team there and are supporting the client like you do, that makes a big difference. And I think Melody has another question.
Well, and I was just going to say, I know a lot of times we'll hear from clients that they want to bring the realtor in just for the land acquisition process, but that it's important to have your builder also evaluate the land too.
I think it's more important to have the builder evaluate it than the realtor. But again, as a team, you kind of work together, because the builder's the one who understands locations, setbacks, topography, what can be built and all. Now, again, I know you know a lot about it too, because you've kind of worked in that world. But again, that's kind of that team atmosphere. So when we're talking, we talked about the shift early on in this process. How do you see, has that affected, in your opinion, the custom builder?
I feel like we're just on the tip of this change. So it's been specifically in the last 4 to 6 weeks. So I think that it's a little bit early to be able to say how it's going to affect the custom build process. I'm curious how you've seen the production supply affected over the last 6 months.
So that's a good question, because that's something that I definitely wanted to bring up as well. The supply chain is something that at its peak was really difficult. Lumber, of course, what is a home made up? It's mostly lumber, and you know, even a few months ago, lumber was very very difficult as far as whether it's pricing or supply. So that's eased off, which is great. Part of it's because the market is resetting itself, which was needed. So now the supply of lumber, the price of lumber is down, lumber is available again. That's a big deal. Now, we're still facing pressures with some of the other materials. I know steel is one. Copper, I just read, came down quite a bit. I think what we're going to find is some of the other materials, appliances, really hard to find. I mean, we were ordering appliances sometimes even before we had clients under contract, because it was taking up to a year to get appliances. Everything is starting to shake itself out a little bit. I think we're still seeing some pressures when it comes to the supply chain. Not nearly as bad as it was, but I also think it's going to be probably spring or summer of 23 before we see things kind of get back to normal. But it's definitely better than it was.
So how does that play out when somebody's custom building, when you've got these big influxes? What does that
Good
look
question.
like?
So a lot of times we're ordering a lot earlier, especially the materials we know we have issues with, the appliances, the siding, windows, and that type of thing. Some of it's market specific too. So like some of the supply chain issues we're having in Missouri, we're not seeing in Utah. So it's just understanding the market and knowing the market. Now, there are also times, Alicia, where we've had to go to a client mid-project and say, we're not going to get this particular door, or we're not going to get this or that or something else. We need to find a substitute. And so we just work with them to find something that they're happy with, and we just do a switch. And so, again, it comes down to the team, the builders, the realtors, everybody working together, because it's not easy to build right now. Everything is taking much longer. There's still a huge labor shortage, and I don't think a lot of our clients understand that a house that we used to build in 8 months is now taking a minimum of 12. And it's because of labor shortages and supply chain shortages.
So how do you manage those expectations without everybody getting, because of course people are going to get grumbly.
Yeah.
You know, we've got clients that we're working and we're
Yeah.
building with right now, and they're being patient, but how do you as the builder manage?
We truly try. We set a, we give everybody a construction schedule up front, and we do our very best to update everyone as often as we can. But sometimes it's hard, especially when you might not understand the industry.
Yeah.
But if people just watch the news every night, they continue to see issues with the labor market. They continue to see some issues with supply chains. So all we can do is communicate and try to provide as much accurate information as possible and update everybody as often as possible. That's where I think it comes in handy to have a realtor, because you get it, you understand it, you live it, you breathe it. So if they're hearing it from the builder, and if they're hearing it from their trusted advisor, who's also their friend and confidant, I think it makes it more palatable for them to hear some of that information.
And I love the correlation between what you hit on with the communication,
Mm-hmm.
because back in the days when the average days on market was 90, 120, there would be weeks I didn't have anything to say. I don't have any offers. We've had no showings. And so the temptation is to pull the communication back.
Yeah.
And yet I feel like that is what creates that trust that you excel at so much. Having communication at the end of the day, even when they may not like what we have to say, it makes a big difference.
That's a great point, because,
Yeah.
but you know what, Alicia, I would say that for, I don't care what profession you're in.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be a doctor, you can be an attorney. I don't care what your
Yeah.
profession is. Communication is the key to everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing that I learned back in the day when I was in the media, that communication is more important than anything you do. And if you have bad news, you deliver it, you come with a solution. If you have good news, you're obviously you're eager and anxious to deliver that. But communication is the key, and that's why it's one of our core values. What did I miss? Anything that you want to talk about?
So I feel like, one thing, again, getting back to this hysteria
Yes.
that we're feeling. I mean, I don't think that you are any different than me. Wherever we go, the question is, so what is going on
Yeah.
in the market?
Give us the skinny, yeah.
And so I just, again, want to reiterate that we're standing on the shoulders of an unprecedented 2 years.
We
So
are.
for everybody to dial back a little bit, will we see an adjustment? Yes, but let's continue to look at facts. How a lot of news is reported is by startling people. It's
Yeah.
sort of like you've got to get enough startle in there to get the viewers. But the reality is we're going to see adjustments. We are going to start seeing price reductions. Like, what is that? What is a price reduction?
I know, we haven't seen that in
We haven't
years.
seen that in years, but I also know that a big part of the price reductions is sellers have the expectation their neighbor just sold their house for $500. We're going to list it $550. When quite frankly, what they should have done is gone in under $5 and allowed the market and the buyers to dictate what's happening in the values.
That
And
is
so
such a very good point, and it kind of underlines the reason that we're talking about the importance of that realtor relationship. Whether you're buying an existing home, whether you're selling an existing home, or whether you're working with a builder, just that knowledge alone, because it's human nature to say, okay, I do want to list mine for $50,000 more than my neighbor sold them for, but just creating that, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Competition. Creating the competition is a really good thing when it comes to selling a home.
You're exactly right. So what's the goal? We're always competing of what's around us. So the goal is you exceed the neighbor's home.
Yeah.
You come in lower, but you exceed it, and then it's a no-brainer. You don't need to think about what do the comps say. Buyers know exactly what's going on out there. They know
They're
the
smart.
competition. They're on Zillow every day. They have more knowledge than
Sometimes
people
they have too much.
They have
as
too
far
much
as I'm
knowledge
concerned.
because they get to interpret it,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And so
true.
I think just acknowledging that, go back to your valued agent for real data. Ask for the numbers. Ask for the graphs. Show me what is happening in Chesterfield for the last 6 months. I need to know the last 4 weeks, as a matter of fact, but go off of that versus all of the hysteria that we're seeing around us.
From hysteria, you can calm that by looking at historical data.
Yes.
Historical data doesn't lie. You can
That's
go
right.
back and look through years, weeks, years, decades, and
That's
you're
right.
going to see it's just a constant flow. So you'll kind of know where the peaks and the valleys are, and I'm a big fan of just relaxing, to your point, and what's happened in the past. What have we seen? One thing that we talked about on Tuesday during our session with Joe Sharman from Groundwork Mortgage is, and this is something that I really didn't think about too much, because every time you hear that the Federal Reserve is going to adjust interest rates again, a couple things, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to affect mortgage rates. They're two totally independent things. So that's something to keep in mind. And secondly, he had some very good points, which I'm sure you're taking advantage of. This is still a good time to build. It's still a good time to buy, even though you're paying a little bit more now for interest on your mortgage due to interest rates going up. There will be that cyclical, that historical data that says, okay, interest rates will eventually come down, so why don't you just refinance that?
So that is my go-to phrase: date the rate, marry the house.
I love that. Date the rate and marry the house.
Go ahead and refi, because we know it's going to keep going up, right? We know the values are going to keep going up. And one quick tip that I'd like to share: are we going to be in a recession? We're probably in one, if not heading to one. All the writing is on the wall. If we look back at the historical data, in the last 6 recessions, the prices have not gone down. They've gone down twice. 2008, we already talked about.
That's an outlier, though. We talked about that because
exactly
of the inventory and the lending practices.
The other time was in 1991. Do you know how much they went down? 0.9%.
So
let's take a look. Recession does not equal housing crash, does not equal prices going backwards.
Real estate is a great investment. And if you have the
Absolutely.
right realtor partner, if you have the right builder partner,
Yes,
it can be a fun process.
that's right.
Melody.
Before we wrap up, we have quite a few realtors who are actually watching too, and I know that we have a pretty close relationship with you, and we're currently working actually on a house with you, and so I wanted to share or have you guys talk a little bit about what are the advantage of working with Hibbs Homes in terms of the real estate custom build connection.
Or a builder. Or is it, you just want to talk specifically about Hibbs Homes or just a builder?
I think that we kind of, I mean, if I say so myself, I think we kind of set the gold standard, right? So
we
at the
try,
very minimum, you should be looking for this when you go to work with a custom builder.
Good, great question.
So many people probably know this. Before my current clients, we interviewed with 4 different custom builders. And it became so clear that everybody had a certain strength, no different than me. You can meet with 4 agents. It's kind of like an attorney. Everybody can have a license. Everyone has a different style. And each time my clients have interviewed custom builders, they knew exactly what was important to them. Someone with a good process, and again, kind of circling back to what we just talked about, who is going to be there when things go bad. And that really is why my clients ended up choosing you.
There's a lot of very talented custom builders in the St. Louis area.
Yes.
So I loved the fact that you also recommend talking with several of them, because everyone is not a perfect fit. There might be something another builder does exceptionally well that fits well with the client. So, from a builder's perspective, I think you're right. I think that fit is everything. And, find out the builder's strengths, find out the weaknesses.
Yes.
I think that the communication portion is so important that's one of the main questions that I think any client or any realtor should ask of the builder.
I have one follow-up question too. What would be a piece of advice that you would give to a real estate agent who may be hesitant about stepping into the building space? What clients are right for that?
Don't hesitate.
Right. Well, I mean, of course, that's what we would say. But what should they look for? What should they look forward to in working in the custom building space?
So you mean as far as what the real estate agent should be looking forward to?
Yeah.
So this is a unique relationship in custom building. Doing this for 18 years. There's so many different dynamics I've seen back through the years of things that helped my relationship with my clients and hurt it. This is the gift of custom building. It's all about relationships. And guess what? we get to see each other now for a solid year.
Mm-hmm.
So any agents who are watching this right now, think about how many touches you're going to be able to have with that client and really lean into that relationship because it's a gift.
Yeah, I also think that you'll know when you're talking with builders right away if it's a good fit. Just trust your gut. The personality of the organization is critical. If it's a group that is fun. Now, I don't mean in a flip way. I mean seriously, but you've got to have fun. This is a fun process. You've got to enjoy it. You've got to understand that it's boy, there are times where it's difficult, but I think just the relationship itself, and you go with your gut, and if you feel comfortable with the builder, if you feel comfortable, you've used the word processes now a couple of times, and I'm very big on that. As a matter of fact, once my role as president of the local HBA was over about 5 years ago, the one thing I spent my time focusing on was making sure our procedures and processes were really buttoned up, because I think that's critical in order to make this a successful project. So, just kind of trust your gut is what I would go with as well.
Well, and it is a longer time span that you're working with a client, but I know one of the things that realtors might not know is that there is a milestone payout structure with a lot of builders, and so it's, it while it's a longer relationship, it's almost passive income at a certain point, right? Because
the way we structure where we pay out along the way is different than other builders who pay out at the very end of closing. So I guess it's going to vary from builder to builder and whatever their philosophy is.
Well, and I will say one other thought that just came into my head was I've had a couple of situations where the builder is not welcoming us interviewing other builders. And so at the end of the day, you and I have been very blessed and fortunate to have successful careers, long careers. In my world, when I'm meeting with clients, I don't want them to be with me if they're not thrilled. Right? Our reputation is worth a lot more than that. You have a stellar reputation. I pride myself on my reputation.
You do too.
I don't want, if you aren't confident that I am the right fit for you or that you are the right fit to be their custom builder, you would prefer for them to be with somebody else, because what's going to happen is you are going to be looking for what I'm doing wrong the whole time. And so if you feel a hesitation of somebody not welcoming that, in my opinion, that's another red flag.
Great points. Alicia, this has been outstanding.
I could talk
really
all
enjoyed
afternoon.
it. I know. We have to do is schedule another Facebook Live and another podcast. If people, and we're going to put this information on our podcast show notes as far as how to get a hold of you. But right now, give us information for someone who wants to reach out, talk to you.
So you are welcome to call me at 314-609-1647. Just go to AliciaCopteam.com and all of the links are there.
So it's 314-609-1647?
That's
Perfect.
right.
Okay. This has been great. Thank you. And we can't thank you enough.
My pleasure.
And we look forward to continuing our work together with custom clients.
Yes.